My daughter called me broke on social media for not funding her $85,000 wedding, not knowing I was buying her $650,000 dream house as a surprise. She lost both. I, 48 male, have a daughter Claudia, 24 female, who is getting married to her fiancé Ryan, 26 male, in 6 months. My wife Sarah passed away from cancer when Claudia was only 12, leaving me to raise her as a single father. Sarah's death hit us both hard, but I knew I had to stay strong for Claudia. I always made sure she had everything she needed growing up. I worked extra hours, took on consulting projects on weekends, and saved every penny I could to give her a good life. Despite the challenges of being a single parent, I managed to put Claudia through the best private school in our area. She was always a bright student and I wanted to nurture her talents. When she got accepted into an Ivy League college, I was overjoyed. I had saved enough for her education, so she graduated without any student loans. She now works at a prestigious marketing firm and earns a good salary. Throughout her childhood, I tried to balance work with spending quality time with her. My only personal indulgence was restoring classic cars, a hobby I started after Sarah passed away. It helped me cope with the loss and gave me something to focus on during the lonely evenings after Claudia went to bed. Over the years, I've restored 3 cars, spending maybe $30,000 total on the hobby. Claudia met Ryan 3 years ago at a mutual friend's party. He comes from a well-off family and works as an investment banker. When they got engaged 8 months ago, they immediately started planning their wedding. They hired an expensive wedding planner who suggested several high-end venues and vendors. The total cost came to around $85,000, which included a destination venue, gourmet catering for 300 guests, designer outfits, and elaborate decorations. Ryan's parents, who live in another state, visited us last month to discuss wedding preparations. They agreed to contribute $20,000 towards the wedding. During dinner, Claudia turned to me and casually asked me to cover the remaining $65,000. I told her I would need some time to figure out the finances. The truth is, I had been saving money for years to buy her dream house as a wedding gift. About 6 months ago, Claudia and Ryan were house hunting in an upscale neighborhood. She fell in love with a beautiful 4-bedroom colonial-style home, but they couldn't afford it at the time. After they left, I contacted the realtor privately. The house cost $650,000, and I had been saving for years to make such a purchase possible. I had already started the buying process and was planning to surprise them after the wedding. Last week, I was at work when my sister called me sounding concerned. She asked if I was having financial problems and offered to help. Confused, I checked social media and found several posts by Claudia. On Instagram, she had posted a tearful selfie with a long caption about having to downsize her dream wedding because her broke dad couldn't afford to pay for it. On Facebook, she shared screenshots of our text conversations where I asked for time to arrange the money, adding comments about how embarrassing it was that all her friends were having grand weddings while she had to compromise. The posts quickly spread among our friends and family. My colleagues, who follow Claudia on social media, started giving me sympathetic looks and awkward pats on the shoulder. Even my boss called me into his office to discreetly ask if I needed an advance on my salary. Ryan's parents called, clearly uncomfortable, asking if everything was okay financially. I felt utterly humiliated. I called Claudia that evening to tell her how hurt I was by her actions. Instead of apologizing, she got angry and accused me of being selfish. She brought up my car restoration hobby, saying I should have saved that money for her wedding instead. She said I was ruining the most important day of her life and that she was tired of pretending we were well off when I clearly couldn't provide like her friend's parents. When I tried explaining that I had other plans for her future, she cut me off and hung up. Yesterday, she sent me a message saying the venue needed confirmation and a deposit by next week. She said if I didn't transfer the money, she would lose the booking and it would be entirely my fault if her wedding got ruined. She added that as her father, it was my responsibility to give her the wedding she deserved. I haven't responded to her message yet. I'm seriously reconsidering both the wedding contribution and the house gift. The thought of rewarding her entitled behavior with a house worth $650,000 makes me feel like a fool. But at the same time, I've spent years planning this surprise and it breaks my heart to cancel it. My brother thinks I should teach her a lesson about gratitude and respect. He says giving her the house now would only reinforce her entitled attitude. But some family members, including my late wife's sister, say I should overlook her behavior since it's her wedding and every bride gets stressed about finances. They think I'm being too harsh and should understand her perspective. I have worked hard all these years to give her a comfortable life, put her through college without debt, and support her dreams. Seeing her publicly shame me for social media attention feels like a betrayal of everything I've done for her. But I keep wondering if I'm overreacting and being too petty about this situation. Ida for wanting to cancel both the wedding contribution and the house gift? Update 1. After my last post, things got much worse than I expected. I spent several days thinking about the situation and decided to go ahead with my original plan of buying the house. I thought maybe seeing such a generous gift would make Claudia realize her mistake and help repair our relationship. The house purchase process was already in its final stages, and I had worked too hard to let it fall through. I finalized the purchase last week, paying $650,000 in full from my savings. It took me nearly 15 years to save this much, living frugally and investing wisely. I had even sold some of my early stock investments to make this possible. The previous owners gave me the keys on Friday, and I spent the weekend quietly getting some repairs done to make the house perfect. But what happened next left me completely shocked. On Monday morning, my colleague sent me a link to a GoFundMe page. Claudia had created it the night before, titled "Help Save My Wedding, A Daughter's Dream Crushed." She shared an emotional story about being raised by a single father who chose his hobbies over her happiness. The post included childhood photos of us together and detailed descriptions of my car restoration projects. She wrote about how I had spent hundreds of thousands on my car collection while refusing to help with her wedding. This was a complete lie. I had only restored 3 cars over 12 years, spending no more than $30,000 total. She even included photos of my garage and cars, claiming each one cost more than her entire wedding budget. The story got worse. She wrote about growing up watching her friends' fathers sacrifice everything for their daughters' weddings, while her dad hoarded money for his hobbies. She mentioned her late mother, suggesting that things would have been different if she was alive. Using her mother's memory to guilt-trip me felt like a new low. The GoFundMe gained traction quickly among her social media followers. By evening, it had been shared hundreds of times. People started commenting with their own stories about parents who sold properties or took loans to fund their children's weddings. Some even criticized me directly, calling me selfish and uncaring. The campaign had already raised $12,000 from sympathetic strangers. Ryan's parents saw the campaign and were shocked. They called me immediately, asking if the claims about my car collection were true. His mother sounded particularly concerned, saying she hadn't realized there were such deep issues between Claudia and me. They had always thought we had a close relationship based on what Claudia had told them. After an hour of uncomfortable conversation, I finally broke down and told them everything. I explained about the house, showing them the purchase documents and photos. I told them how I had been planning this surprise for years, saving money instead of spending it on expensive hobbies as Claudia claimed. I shared bank statements showing my savings pattern and the relatively small amount spent on car restoration. When they saw the house documents, Ryan's mother started crying. She couldn't believe Claudia would publicly humiliate me while I was planning such a generous gift. Ryan's father was equally disturbed. He said they had always admired how well I had raised Claudia as a single parent, and this behavior seemed completely out of character for her. After our conversation, they decided to withdraw their $20,000 contribution to the wedding. They said they couldn't, in good conscience, support someone who would treat their parent this way. Ryan's father mentioned that he needed to have a serious conversation with his son about whether Claudia was the right person for their family. I felt terrible about potentially damaging her relationship with Ryan's family. This wasn't what I wanted at all. I had spent years building a good relationship with them, and now everything was falling apart because of social media drama. But I couldn't defend Claudia's actions anymore. The lies she had spread about me, using my late wife's memory and my modest hobby to paint me as a villain, had crossed a line I never thought she would cross. The GoFundMe page is still up, gaining more donations and shares. Every notification feels like a fresh betrayal. People I've known for years are commenting and sharing without even asking for my side of the story. Some have even started unfollowing me on social media, presumably believing Claudia's version of events. I haven't decided what to do about the house yet. The keys are sitting on my desk, mocking all my years of planning and sacrifice. I keep thinking about how excited I was to surprise her, imagining her joy when she saw her dream home. Now that dream has turned into a nightmare, and I'm left wondering if I ever really knew my daughter at all. Update 2. The situation completely exploded this week. Ryan's parents finally confronted Claudia about the GoFundMe campaign during a dinner at their house. They told her they knew about the house and couldn't believe she would publicly humiliate me while I was planning such a generous gift. According to Ryan's mother, Claudia went completely pale and left the dinner table in tears. Claudia showed up at my house that evening, still crying and demanding to know if it was true about the house. Instead of answering, I took her to see it. I had gotten some repairs done and even started getting the garden cleaned up. When she saw it, she broke down completely. She kept saying it was the exact house she had wanted and asked why I hadn't told her about it sooner. After walking through the house, we sat in the empty living room where she finally started talking. She admitted she had been feeling incredibly insecure because all her friends from college were having extravagant weddings. Her best friend's parents had spent over $200,000 on her wedding last month, and another friend was having a destination wedding in Europe. She said she got carried away with the social media posts because she felt embarrassed telling her friends she had to cut down her wedding budget. The GoFundMe was her desperate attempt to save face after Ryan's parents told some family friends about the scaled-down wedding plans. She claimed she never expected it to go viral or raise actual money. But instead of apologizing for her behavior, she got defensive. She said I should have told her about the house earlier so she could have planned accordingly. According to her, if she had known about the house, she wouldn't have asked for wedding money or started the GoFundMe. She actually blamed me for letting her embarrass herself publicly. Then came the most shocking part. She had the audacity to ask if she could still have both the house and the wedding money. She suggested I could take out a mortgage on the house to pay for the wedding, saying we could figure out the payments later. She even mentioned selling one of my cars to cover some costs. That's when I lost my temper. I told her she would get neither the house nor any money for the wedding. I explained how I had spent years saving up, living frugally, and planning this surprise. I told her about taking extra projects and consulting work to make it possible. But after seeing how easily she had turned against me for social media attention, I couldn't trust her anymore. She started crying again, saying she would take down the GoFundMe and apologize publicly. But I had already decided, the house is still in my name and I plan to sell it. As for the wedding, she would have to figure it out herself. She has a good job and earns well, she can have whatever wedding she can afford. Claudia left after an hour of arguing, slamming the door behind her. Since then, she has been calling and texting constantly. She varies between apologizing and accusing me of being cruel. Yesterday, she sent a group text to our entire family explaining her side of the story, but conveniently leaving out the part about asking for both the house and wedding money. Ryan called me this morning sounding worried. He said he had no idea about the GoFundMe until his parents told him. He apologized for not knowing what Claudia was doing and said he needed time to think about everything. I feel bad for him because he's caught in the middle of this mess. The house is now listed for sale. My realtor thinks we can get more than what I paid for it. I plan to use the money for my retirement instead. It's ironic how my attempt to give Claudia her dream home ended up securing my own future instead. Some relatives are still pressuring me to reconsider, saying I'm being too harsh. But they haven't seen how calculating Claudia has been through all this. She's not sorry about what she did, she's just sorry she got caught and lost both the house and wedding money. I don't recognize the person she's become, and that hurts more than any social media post ever could. Update 3. After 3 weeks of drama, the wedding has been officially cancelled. Ryan finally had enough and called off the engagement. He discovered more social media posts where Claudia had been bad-mouthing his family behind their backs. His parents found her private Instagram account where she had complained about their measly $20,000 contribution and made snide remarks about how their family wasn't as wealthy as her friends' in-laws. She had posted photos from dinner parties at their house, mocking their outdated furniture and tacky decor. She even criticized the engagement ring Ryan had given her, comparing it unfavorably to her friends' rings and suggesting he could have afforded better if his parents had helped more. These posts dated back several months, showing this wasn't just recent behavior. When Ryan confronted her, she tried to explain it away as private venting. But he had already seen enough. He said he couldn't marry someone who would disrespect both her father and his family so publicly. The fact that she had hidden these posts from him for months made him question everything about their relationship. Claudia is now staying with her aunt, my late wife's sister. She has deleted all her social media accounts and the GoFundMe page. She refunded the donations after several people threatened to report her for misrepresentation. Her friends who had extravagant weddings have distanced themselves from her, and she lost her close friend group. Last week, she sent me a long email saying she realizes her mistakes and wants to make amends. She wrote about how losing Ryan and the house made her understand the consequences of her actions. She mentioned going through old photos and remembering all the sacrifices I made raising her alone. She asked if we could meet and talk things through. But I'm done. I sold the house for $680,000 last week. I used part of the money to start college funds for my niece and nephew, who have never asked me for anything. The rest I invested in my retirement fund and some long-term investments. At least something good came out of this whole situation. Claudia keeps texting me through different numbers since I blocked her original one. She says she has learned her lesson and promises to be a better daughter. Yesterday, she left a handwritten letter in my mailbox talking about how much she misses our Sunday brunches and car rides together. She wrote about wanting to rebuild our relationship from scratch. But I can't forget how easily she turned our private matters into public entertainment for social media validation. She didn't just make one mistake, she spent months deliberately crafting a false narrative about me and Ryan's family. She only stopped when she got caught and lost everything. I have blocked her on everything and told relatives not to update me about her life. My sister thinks I'm being too harsh, but she wasn't the one who got humiliated publicly by her own child. The trust is completely broken, and I don't see how it can be rebuilt. Maybe someday I'll be ready to talk to her again, but right now I need space to heal from this betrayal. The daughter I raised would never have done this to me or anyone else. The worst part is that if she had just talked to me honestly about wanting a bigger wedding, I might have found a way to help. Instead, she chose social media validation over our relationship. At least I found out her true nature before giving her the house. It hurts to lose my only child like this, but sometimes the hardest lessons come with the highest costs.